Okay. All right. So welcome everybody. I'm so happy to see some new faces and some familiar faces and some very familiar faces. And so I just want to get started by introducing myself and Culikid before we get started and let you know about the class. So for those who don't know me, my name is Kelly. I'm Culikid's executive director. So I'll be helping our Chef Jazz over there, facilitate our class. And Culikid is a New York City based nonprofit, and all of our programs are culinary based and work on social independence and motor skills. Um, and just want to let you all know that the class today is being recorded. So that way, if somebody misses the class, they can do it again, or you can all revisit the recording and make this again on your own. That being said, though, if you don't want your face to be in the recording, you can turn your camera off. We love to see everybody's face so we can see what you're doing, what step you're up to, and see if you need any help with what's going on your side of the screen. You can also let us know if you don't want to be in any screenshots or recording in the chat so we can just block out your face that way. I also wanted to point out, obviously you guys all come in muted. That's to just minimize our background noise that's happening in all of our kitchens. But we have a way of communicating. You can take yourselves off mute if you do have a question that you want to say out loud. That is totally fine. Or we also utilize the chat too for questions and any discussion you want to have. So I would love to take the time now to practice using our chat. And you can just type in your name and where you're from. So we can get to know everybody. So I'm going to start us off right there. I'm Kelly. I'm in New York City. Feel free to let us know who you are and where you're from in the chat. Lastly, I'm going to send some links in the chat as well as and in email for our next classes. Our next class is going to be veggie spring rolls. We're going to work on some knife skills, and you will have the opportunity to also get one of these knives for an additional purchase through the class if you want to use this safe knife for when we work on our knife cuts in our veggie spring roll class in March. Okay, that's it. We're ready to get started. If you're cooking with people at home and you're taking pictures, we'd love to see them, both of the process and how everything is going, but also the finished product, since we won't be able to see it together on screen. So if you just came in or came in while I was talking, what you want to do right now is preheat your oven to 400 degrees. That's the very first thing we do when we're cooking, and especially today, we've got our carrots going in pretty quickly. So go ahead and preheat your ovens to 400 degrees. Okay, and I see in the chat, James and Jacob. Hi, Enrique, how are you?
Hi, Kelly. How are you doing?
Okay. I'm great. It's so great to see you.
All right, ready for first Culikid?
I'm so happy to see all the excitement. I hope everybody is as excited as Enrique is. So, Enrique, I was just mentioning to everybody that we are going to be on mute for most of the class, but when you have a question, you can go ahead and unmute yourself, or
okay,
you know,
I'll
just
be
say.
On mute, all right?
Okay, that sounds great. So what you want to do now is make sure you preheat your oven to 400 degrees. Okay, so if you didn't hear that yet, 400 degrees for our oven. So I'm just saying hi to everybody in the chat, James and Jacob in Richmond, Virginia, Shannon in Brooklyn, Maria in the Bronx, Veronica, Lower East Side, New York City. Got Soraya, Angelica, and Penelope from Rockland. So if you missed that too, we're also just saying hello to everybody in the chat. So go ahead and say hello if you'd like. Now we're really ready to get started. I'm going to turn it over to Chef Jazz, who's going to lead us through our cooking.
Mute. Hi, everybody. I'm Chef Jazz, and today we are going to be making pesto. And this is a really special pesto recipe to me because it's one of my favorite things to eat. I love making pesto. I love putting my pesto on my carrots and using the carrot tops. So first things first, you're gonna, since these carrots came out of the dirt not that long ago, before they landed in your supermarket or farmer's market or wherever you got them from, we're gonna make sure that we really clean these and scrub them, because we're gonna be using most of our carrot, including the tops, okay? So if you didn't already really thoroughly wash your carrots, now is the time before we get started, okay? So thumbs up if you're like good, if you're good to go. Otherwise, if you're like, wait, I just took it out of the bag, I forgot, you can go ahead now and wash your carrots and give them a good dry too. Oh, we're on one screen today, cool.
I saw a little bit of a mix and some people who are working on washing their carrots right now. So we're just going to wait a moment for that. For anybody who's new to our online classes, we always wait for everybody to be on the same page with us. And the way we do that is by giving a thumbs up when we're ready for the next step. So I already saw some, so that's great.
I'm curious, in the meantime, are we using food processors or blenders? You can either show me, you can respond in the chat, just so I can get a feel for who's using what. If you're washing carrots, that's okay, do you? I see a food processor.
I heard somebody also say food
processor. I heard food processor, so that's 3 food processors. I see a, I don't know,
blender.
Blender.
Jen also said in the chat she's got a blender.
I see Veronica's already snacking. But it's called a chef's treat for a reason. So when you're in the kitchen, you get dibs on everything. You have a question, Anne? Anne and Peter?
Do you know how to unmute?
Unmute. No.
Did you see something?
There you go.
It's actually Anastasia and Michael.
Oh.
Yeah, we're gonna, it's just like, we're a little younger than some other people and we're really new, so we're gonna use a mix of food processor.
Okay, you're gonna use a food processor, so am I. Raise your hand if this is also your first time cooking with us. So the Miller kids, that's your first time. I see Jay as well, so you're not alone.
Yeah.
We have a few first timers.
And I bet that we also have some kids on the call who are even younger than you are. So we are going to make this nice and easy and make sure we're all on the same page, no matter if it's your first time or you're feeling a little unsure. So if we go too fast, just let us know. Yeah. Okay, I think we might all be washed.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to our first step. We should have our hair back. If you have any bracelets or rings, you're gonna wanna take them off, especially if you're going into a blender. I'm taking my ring off. Hair back, aprons on if you got one, and let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to line up all of our beautiful carrots. You can see my carrots. And we are going to cut off the tops. So these are what we want, these beautiful fronds, the hairs, because we're going to be using those. So I'm cutting it a little bit above this part. We're going to put all of this into the oven. And this is the part that we're going to work with first, okay? So while we let our ovens get nice and hot before we put our carrots in, because we just turned our ovens on, we're going to just separate our carrot tops. And when we have our carrot tops separated, we're going to great. You can put your carrots on the side because we're going to work with our carrot tops first. And that's step 1.
Okay, so when you have cut off all of your carrot tops from your carrots, let's see a thumbs up.
Hello. If you're joining us, you can turn your oven on to 400 degrees. And so far, we've cut off our carrot tops. So 2 steps, oven on to 400 degrees, and then we're gonna cut off our carrot tops. And Kelly is typing the steps in the chat in case you miss anything. You can always look at the chat. And pesto is really special. It comes from Italy. Generally, it's made of basil or a leafy green oil, a nut. Traditionally, pine nuts, we're using cashews. You can use walnuts, and a cheese. And once you blend it all together, back in the day, they used to make it with a mortar and pestle. So the Italian grannies would have their little mortar and pestle, and they would use a masher and mash it until it's ready. And that's now, luckily, we have blenders and food processors, but you could still mash it if you want. It'll just take a while. So thumbs up when you've separated your carrots from your carrot top. I see thumbs up. Kelly, let me know when I can move on.
I think that was everybody. And so I also, if I do miss you, because I'm trying to see a lot of screens at once and I say we're ready and you weren't, just let us know by unmuting or in the chat, but it looks like we're ready.
Awesome. So we are going to take our food processor or blender, and we're going to just start picking the leaves off of the stem. We don't want the stem in there because the stem is too thick. It'll be too much of a bite. We just want the leaves. So this is going to take a little while depending on how much carrot tops came with your carrots. So we're going to
Good place for teamwork if you have teamwork going on over there.
Yes, you can divide and conquer this step a lot faster.
So if you haven't used a food processor or a blender before, it's a great way to, get really small cuts, and it's pretty safe as long as you know how to use it. So keep in mind that there is a blade in the bottom. So you want to drop things in, not necessarily place them. And if you drop something in that you didn't want to go in, then you should get it out with a tool or something. Don't ever stick your hand into it.
Yeah, use a spoon to get things out, especially once your blender or food processor is really full. It's hard to see where the blade is. So should always practice kitchen safety. And right now we're practicing patience because
yes,
this is going to take a little while.
This is one of those things that I find pretty calming in the kitchen though, because you don't really have to think about it and you're just doing the same action over and over again. So I like doing stuff like this sometimes.
And there's no wrong way to do this step. You're just picking the little leaves off and then you're leaving the stems. What I usually do with my stems is I like to make my own vegetable and chicken stocks and broth. So I usually keep my stems and collect them with any onion, like the skin from the onions, or that first layer that sometimes you take off before you cut an onion, and the scrap bits of celery. And I collect it in a large Ziploc bag and I put it in my freezer. Whenever that bag gets full, I just boil that vegetable broth. I let it simmer for a couple of hours or for like a whole day, really. So that is a
Great
suggestion
idea.
if you're like, I used the tops, I used the bottoms, and I didn't use the middle. That's a way to use the middle.
Yeah, so we love this recipe too because it's a low waste recipe where you don't have to just throw out the tops.
Alternatively, you could always use your tops in salads. You could probably, for those of you who drink green juices, you could use your tops in your green juices too. Same with like beet tops. I told that to my mom and she didn't want to believe me, and then she made it and she loved it. And she called me and was like, I used the beet tops. It was really good.
I love
So
that.
that's another suggestion.
All right, how's everybody's leaf picking going? Is anybody done? Oh, I think I see some thumbs up already. Some people might already be done.
Okay,
Oh, a
we're gonna
couple,
switch it
yeah.
into high gear. I didn't know we were racing, guys.
Yeah, woof. You guys must have a lot of, I think it's those, the ones with lots of teamwork going on with multiple hands.
Gotcha.
Because I am not done. So now I'm like, oh, got to catch up with you guys. All right. And if you're waiting for us to be ready for you, again, this takes a little bit of patience. So we appreciate everybody waiting. We love to wait till we're all in the same step together, obviously. So you can chat in the chat if you'd like with each other. See if, there's anybody you want to get to know or give encouraging words. We like that stuff. And then I just also want to point out too that if you're ever doing, for parents and adults at home, if you're doing any recipe that requires this picking leaves off of the stems of herbs or for the carrot tops too, this is a great activity if you want to get your kids involved in the recipe. Low risk, picking it off. There's no wrong way to do it. So it's a great way to get them involved in helping you.
And sometimes you have like a thicker stem. My stems were all really thin, and you can just pull the leaf down all the way in one go. I didn't have many of those. I usually do this recipe with like thinner carrots because I like that they cook faster. But with this recipe, your cook time will depend on how thin or how thick your carrots are. So that's something to keep in mind. So we have 20 minutes in the recipe, but it might take a little bit longer depending on how thick your carrots are.
Okay, I'm just checking in with everybody. Looks like there's some still picking leaves, although we're getting close to done. Anybody who's done, anybody want to show us what your carrots look like? See if we have little or big carrots. Okay, I see Maria's. I see Suani's, Veronica's. All of these actually look pretty similar so far. What do you think, Jazz?
They all look kind of similar. I think we'll probably be about 20 minutes. Some of you maybe 30 minutes. But yeah, for the most part, we'll be quick. It's almost lunchtime.
Yeah.
So I have my carrot tops here on the side, and I have returned my carrots to my cutting board.
Instead of giving me a thumbs up if you're done, can you raise your hand if you're still working? Raise your hand if you're still working. You see one screen still working.
You can move ahead without us.
Mommy, here
We're almost done.
Okay, if you're sure. we can start talking about the next step at the very least. So Jazz, what's next for us?
Okay. So let's prepare our sheet pan. I have my sheet pan. Oop. See it in my frame. I have my sheet pan, and I'm going to put a little bit of parchment on it. If you don't have parchment, that's okay. I like putting parchment down because it means that my sheet pan won't be ruined, which it already kind of is. So
Yeah, I don't think I put that in the supply list. So again, if you don't have it, it's okay.
it's totally okay if you don't have it. It's just a little bit easier cleanup. So if you have it, put it down. If not, no worries. So the sheet pan has the parchment right on top. Let me see it if you can show me. Otherwise, a thumbs up will suffice. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Awesome, great listeners. So we have our sheet pan. Now I have my carrots. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil. We all have the same oil. This is Mr. Pete's Pure Nonsense, Pure No Nonsense, 100% Greek olive oil. It's hard to read backwards. So I'm actually going to just fill this cap and use this as my measuring spoon. And I'm going to just drizzle over my carrots. And then we can rub it all in. And make sure that it's nice and coated. I'm gonna put my cap back on so that I don't accidentally spill this delicious olive oil. And then I'm going to just coat my carrots to make sure that they have oil all over everything. I have a little bit of my stem still on here, so I'm gonna make sure my stems get some oil too.
Yeah, we got to get our hands in there this time. So, you know, you can wash them afterwards to make sure you get the oil off before you touch everything.
Or you can rub it in. I love, my hands are a little bit dry, so I'm just rubbing my hands. Next, we're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper so that we can have a little bit of flavor going on. So I just grabbed 1 pinch of salt. 1 pinch is about 1/4 teaspoon. And then I'm gonna do the same with the pepper. And I really just like adding salt and pepper until I can see it. And then this can go on our sheet pan. We're actually done with our cutting boards. So our cutting boards can go in the sink and out of our way. We can also take the knives and put those in the sink and out of our way, okay? Okay. I like to clean as I go when I'm cooking. So when you guys all have your carrots on your sheet pan, repeat.
Yeah,
Okay.
did you see the chat? Jazz, Veronica asked, can we slow down a little bit and repeat the instructions, I think, for the carrots, right? The olive
Sure.
oil, salt, and pepper. Okay.
Sure, so we have 1 capful of olive oil on our carrots. And then we're gonna add a pinch of salt. If you would like to measure, that's 1/4 teaspoon with your measuring spoons of salt.
I realize I also didn't put these into the chat either, so I'm going to do that really quick as well so people can reference it.
And 1/4 teaspoon of pepper for the chat. Ooh, nice. That's hearty. The potatoes. It's gonna taste amazing with the pesto. Everything tastes amazing with pesto.
Okay, sorry about that for not remembering to put our steps in the chat. They're there now. And Maria, I saw, is doing the potatoes for lunch, so that's a great idea. And we can talk a little bit at the end too, if we have time, what else we can use our pesto for, because I don't think we're going to use the pesto, all of it, on the carrots. Okay, so let's get a thumbs up if your carrots are ready. Ready means olive oil, salt, and pepper.
And on the sheet pan.
And on the sheet pan, yep. For the people that I can see, I saw all thumbs up. So again, if you are not ready, please let us know, but I think that we are.
Awesome. So let's all go into the oven together, but first we're going to set an alarm. It is 11:30 on the dot. So we're going to set an alarm for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So at 11:45, we're going to check on our carrots, okay? Thumbs up when you've set your alarm.
Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up.
We could use teamwork too. Good. For those of us who set our alarms, they will remind those of us who didn't. Kelly set her alarm, yep. I did not.
Yep.
And then using oven mitts, we are going to carefully put our carrots into the oven. So when you get to the oven, it's 400 degrees in there, so it's really hot. We're going to open the oven, put the sheet tray into the top row, and then close the oven, okay?
So yeah, make sure you're going in with your oven mitts, right?
Yes.
So go ahead and put your carrots in. Timers are on. And let me add that too. All right. Looks like everybody's back on screen. Does everybody have everything in the oven? Carrots in the oven? Thumbs up if you do. Thumbs up. I see a lot of them. I think I saw all of them.
Awesome. So back to our pesto. Let's grab our basil and keep picking. So basil has a little bit of a thicker stem. And what you can also do is you can pick and just pull them off one by one. But if you have a thick stem like this, if you watch me really quick, guys, you'll see that you can kind of just go down the stem and pull off multiple leaves at once. Do we want to try that all together? So when you have a thick stem basil, oh, this one has a lot of leaves on it. You can just go down and pull off multiple leaves at once. What's really nice is someone just said they're calm. It's the smell of basil. It has a very calming effect, and it also makes you hungry. I know this because I run a community fridge in New York, in Harlem, and we rescue about 200 pounds of basil every Saturday. And between 6 volunteers or so, we bag 200 pounds of basil. And the whole room smells like basil.
Ooh,
and it's kind of like aromatherapy.
does smell really, really good. And I see Suwani said I already cleaned them, and so that's a good. I
Perfect.
think these should be rinsed as well, just like our carrots. So
We want to always make sure we rinse our herbs and our veggies whenever we're cooking with them, before cooking with them. We want to make sure we dry them really well too before we start cooking with them. So whether that's air drying them or patting them dry. My blender is starting to get full. My food processor, I mean.
yeah, mine's pretty up to the top right now. See Veronica's basil. Excuse me. That's a lot of basil. Looks so good.
Yeah, and since our carrot, the amount of carrot tops we have are all different, the amount of basil we have is all different depending on what a bunch in your, wherever you got it from, looks like. So you might need a little bit more oil, you might need a little bit more nuts. What's nice about pesto is that it holds nicely, so you can have it in your refrigerator for a week to make with to use with other recipes. You don't necessarily need an exact recipe, although it's nice the first time you make something to have an exact recipe. Once you have an idea of how to make it, it gets a little bit easier to say, to taste as you go and say, you know, maybe I just need a little bit more salt, maybe I need a little bit more cheese, and you can make it to how you like it. You know, maybe I want it a little bit chunky, maybe I want it thinner. So this is something that you can totally customize to how you prefer it. So my basil is picked. I didn't have that much basil.
Yeah, how is everybody else doing? Thumbs up if basil is done and in your food processor. Cake. It was kind of hard for some reason to see all the screens. Hands up if you're still working. Okay, a couple. Okay,
Okay.
so you just need another minute.
I'm just gathering my other ingredients. Cashews.
Okay, for those that are ready, what's the next step we can be thinking about, or next ingredient we can be grabbing?
Next ingredient we're going to be using will be our garlic. You can grab your garlic. We're going to need 2 cloves.
Jazz, I actually have a question for you. With the basil stems, is that something you would put in your stock, or is the flavor too aggressive?
It's a little bit aggressive, but you can save your basil stems for if you ever make pasta yourself from scratch, tomato sauce yourself from scratch. You can save your basil stems and add it in there. If you buy your tomato sauce pre-made and you want it a little bit more basil-y and like to add a little bit of freshness, you can use that. So you could totally freeze your basil stems and then use it in the future for most likely something that you want a little bit more tomato, like it pairs really nicely with tomatoes. So
I see Stacy actually had the same question as me. That was a coincidence. So Stacy, great minds, thinking alike over here. I think that we are ready for garlic. I see our basil screens are no longer working on basil. So I think we're ready.
Awesome. So we're going to pick 2 cloves of garlic. If you know you like garlic, you can add a 3rd. You want it really garlicky. So let's start with 2. So I have my 2 cloves of garlic and I just peeled it off. If your garlic skin is giving you a little bit of trouble, you can always use your knife to smash it down. You put down your knife, you put your hand down, palm down, fingers up, and you just smush it down onto your cutting board. But mine didn't give me much of a fight today.
Yeah, and that's so you can more easily pick that skin off.
Yeah, to loosen the skin. These garlic skins also go in my stock. Same with the onion skins, onion peels. So I have my 2 cloves of garlic, and they're just gonna go right into my pesto. So we're not using a ton of dishes today, which is nice. I always aim to not use a ton of dishes.
That's right.
Looks like Maria's in.
I think Isabel is showing cashews. Is that what you have? Okay. We're getting a step ahead of ourselves there. Hold on to your cashews and other nuts.
You can
Let's
snack on them in the meantime.
Yeah. Let's see thumbs up for garlic in our food processor. And I'm going to come to your question, Michael, in just a minute. I just want to see thumbs up. I might have missed people. So why don't we take a pause for Michael, do you have a question?
Where do we put the garlic?
It's going into your food processor.
Okay.
Or your blender.
Yeah, whichever you're using. Good question. So from here, everything's basically going into our blender. Yep. Good question. Okay, I think we're ready with garlic. Anybody still working? Hands up if you're still working on your garlic. Okay, everybody's ready.
So the next ingredient we will be using will be our cashews. So we're going to measure out a 1/3 cup of cashews. If you do not have cashews, but you have walnuts or pine nuts, you can use different nuts. I wouldn't say just a peanut, but because then it'll be too peanutty. But actually, I'm going to scoop into my container because it's really big. And I like a lot of cashews, so this is the amount I'm going to use. Again, if you want more at the end, you can always add more. But for the amount that I have in this small cup, this is a good amount. The cashews bring the kind of chunkiness to it, which is really nice.
Those again are going right into your blender or food processor as well.
Yes.
Okay. Thumbs up when you have your nuts in your food processor.
Awesome.
Is anybody still working on this stuff? Hands up if you're still working. Okay, I think we're good.
The next thing we're going to add is cheese. We're going to add about 1/4 of a cup of cheese, of our cheese, our grated cheese. If you like it more cheesy, you can add more cheese. If you have a 1/4 of a cup.
My recipe actually does say 1/3, but you're saying you can add more.
If you would like, yeah. So you can do 1/4, 1/3. I don't think that a third fits in my food processor at this point. If you don't want to use cheese, you can use nutritional yeast, and you can also do without. I've done it without in a pinch. I usually like to buy the whole cheese and then grate it myself and then do it that way, but this is what Fairway had today.
Okay, do we have our cheese in the blender? Thumbs up if you've got cheese in the blender or food processor. Okay, again, I saw a bunch. I think that we're good for who I could see in the screen.
Okay, so we're just about ready to blend, but first we have to prepare ourselves for our carrot alarms that are about to go off. So those are going off in about a minute. What I want you to do is to make sure that you have a landing pad next to your oven where you can open your oven, take out your sheet tray with your mitts, and then put it down safely. So I like to call this a landing pad, whether that's, you know, right on top of your stove or next to your stove. You just want to make sure that you have that because your pan is going to be really hot. We're going to take it out. We're going to put it on our landing pad, and then we're going to use tongs to carefully turn our carrots over so that they roast evenly on both sides, okay? So we don't want to do that in the air. We don't want to do that with the door open from the oven because then we're letting out all of the heat. So we want to make sure we have a safe space to do that, okay? And our alarm should be going off now, right? So let's show 10 to our, no, not yet.
Yeah, I think now it's fine. Mine is about 1 minute left. Sorry, does somebody have a question?
2 minutes.
2 minutes for you. So I think that, you know, there's a little bit of a range. So if you've got your alarm going off right now, you can take them out if you have another minute. Some of you might have 2 minutes. So you can do that when
yeah,
the timer
let's
goes off.
let's all do it together right now, okay? So that we can continue together. So
Okay.
let's all do it right now.
Okay, right. So remember, we're using our oven mitts, being nice and safe, and going onto our landing pad. Michael, all good or a question?
Give her a thumbs up. So
All
she
good.
knows.
All good. Cool.
Another thing is that you will notice that your carrots, especially if you are not using a parchment paper, they have that little brown line across. That means that they have been cooking and they're starting to soften up, but they're probably not fully soft yet. They need a few more minutes. I would say mine need at least another 10 minutes. But it will depend based on where, like the size of your carrots.
So I just set another alarm on my end, assuming that most people need the same amount of time, but you can make your own judgment calls. If your carrots are smaller, maybe you do 5 minutes instead of 10. If they're bigger, maybe you need to do a little bit more.
But what I'm looking for in a roasted carrot is I like those beautiful golden lines down the center. It looks a little bit shriveled up. It feels soft when you poke it with a fork. It feels soft, and that's what I'm looking for in a carrot, in a roasted carrot, in a perfectly roasted carrot. Those potatoes will need a little bit more time, but they're going to be tasty once they're done. You might even want to smash them. That'll be cool. You use like a heavy pot and smash them.
I do just want to talk about olive oil for a minute while everybody's finishing up with their carrots going back in the oven. Most people on our call right now should have gotten the 2 mini Mr. Pete's. And so there's not any measuring that's going on because we're just going to use those 2 full bottles, right, Jazz?
Yeah. So these are 2 ounces each. We used a little bit for our carrots, and depending on how much you're making, this size should be enough. But again, everything about a pesto is to your taste and to your liking, which is what makes it fun. This olive oil is Greek olive oil. And Mr. Pete's was kind enough to partner with us on this class. So a very special thank you to Mr. Pete's brand.
Yeah, they're really cool because they're actually Brooklyn based. So nice and local for anybody who's in New York City with us. But if you don't have the olive oils, if you either didn't get them, then that's a mistake from the post office or from me. So we can talk about that after. Or if you didn't provide an address on purpose, then you're going to need half a cup. So everybody else doesn't need to do any measuring, but if you're using a different olive oil, you need half a cup.
Half of a
Yeah.
cup of olive oil.
Yeah, no problem. We're happy to repeat. So we're not doing anything with it yet. It's just for people who need to measure out their olive oil. So you can go ahead and take that step now if you need to. Get your half a cup ready to go because we're going to be streaming it in when we start our pesto. Right? We're going to stream it in simultaneously as blending.
We're gonna, well, I'm using a food processor, so I'm pouring it in and then blending. You can pour it in and then blend on a blender too. Because we don't need to like emulsify it like we would an olive oil. I mean a dressing, like a salad dressing.
Gotcha. Okay, so after
So I
all that
see
talking
Maria
about olive oil,
going. Yeah, I see Maria going in the oven. Are we all in the oven
everyone
at this
else
point?
in? Thumbs up if you're back in the oven and you're ready to go.
Cool. So let's add our olive oil. We need a liquid in order for our blenders and food processors to cut up all of these ingredients, right? So that's why we're adding our olive oil before we start to blend.
Salt and pepper.
What about salt and pepper?
Salt and pepper.
Yeah,
So
that's the question.
the reason why we haven't added salt or pepper yet is because our cheese has salt in it, right? So first we're gonna blend it and then see how salty it is. The carrot tops are actually a little bit peppery. So then we're getting those flavors. So we wanna first blend it, see where we're at, and then if we wanna add more salt, if we wanna add more pepper, if we wanna add more garlic, if we wanna add more cheese, if we want to add more cashews, at that point, we can do it. But first we have to see where we're at. But that is a great point because we always want to season our food.
Yeah, great question.
So I'm gonna go on mute because I'm ready to blend. Can you mute me or no?
Yeah, I can. Muted. I'm gonna also, oh, you just have to click the unmute, yeah.
I'm gonna blend until I'm smooth, okay? So I know that I like my pesto smooth. If you think you might want your chop, you could do chop, yeah. You just want it to get smooth. So I don't know what your other settings might be, like salsa. You can pulse it until puree. You could puree.
Puree,
I
yeah.
usually, if I'm using like a classic food processor, I'll just hit pulse and then hold it down for a bit. So
Yeah, before we start, does anybody else have any other settings that they're not sure about? So if you have chopped versus puree, I think puree is the way to go because you want it to be really, really, really small cuts. Again, if the food processor, you can just pulse it until it's right. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. Are you ready for a mute, Jazz?
I'm ready for a mute. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And I'm also going to mute myself so you don't hear mine, but I've got eyes on the screen. So let me know if you have any questions. Okay, I noticed that mine has some, because it was so full, has like some chunks of cheese, for example, stuck at the top. So I'm just going to open mine up and scrape down the sides a bit with a tool, again, not with hands. So you might need to do that as well. Oh my goodness, it smells good.
Okay, so I'm going to show you all where my pesto is at. Well, let me use a spoon for that. Kind of chunky, it's kind of smooth, it's very green. I can see the bits of garlic and everything in there. I'm going to give it a taste. That's awesome. I could use a little bit of salt. You can also add a little bit of lemon if you want a little bit of acidity. If you're adding more cheese, be careful about adding salt.
Actually, I think mine could potentially use more olive oil. I think it's probably up to taste, but like it seems a little bit dry to me, Jazz. So if it's not the consistency you want, then you can add olive oil to kind of loosen it up. Is that the way to go?
Absolutely. If you want it a little bit thinner, you can always add olive oil.
So yeah, remember to taste and add your salt and pepper. And when we add salt and pepper, it's usually what we call to taste. So you don't necessarily have to measure it, but you can, and you can start with that quarter teaspoon if you'd like.
In the chat, I'm curious, what do you guys think? What do you think you need a little bit more of? Do you want it to have a little bit more of a garlicky flavor? Do you want a little bit more cheese? Do you want it to be a little thicker and have a little bit more cashew chunks in it? Do you want it thinner? Do you want to add a little bit of olive oil?
Suani said, taste, it is good and tasty. Sorry, I got distracted because that was my 10-minute timer. I think,
Yes.
so that would be the time to check on our carrots again.
Yes.
So a lot of multitasking here. If your timer went off and you need to check on your carrots, you want to do that. And you can always come back to your pesto. And Suani said to put in lemon juice. Yeah, I could see how that would be really tasty here. Thanks for sharing that, Suani.
Yeah, I added a little bit of lemon to mine too. I have some thinner carrots that are done, and I have some thicker carrots that could use a little bit more time. So do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to carefully use tongs to remove my thinner carrots that are ready. I'm going to leave my thicker carrots here. I am so ready for lunchtime. You guys have no idea.
So good after adding that salt and pepper. That is going to be tasty. As I saw Jay adding lemon, great idea. Awesome. Love the adaptations we're making. Does anybody have any questions about how their pesto turned out, or any questions about how their carrots are doing?
So I have my carrots here. You all to see my carrots that are done. This pan is very hot. This is a new pan, and As you can see, they have a little roasty, goldy, good, orangey, roasty goodness. They've shriveled up a little bit. They're soft when I poke them. I'm gonna let them continue to cool there. And where are you guys at in regards to, are your carrots done? Do they need a little bit more time? Do we have questions about how they are looking? Is it okay if there are pieces of garlic left in the pesto? What is
In the pesto.
In the pesto?
Yeah.
Oh, like a thicker chunk. I like garlic chunks. If you or your family are not that big of a fan, you could grind it a little bit. You could blend a little bit more. So it's totally your preference.
Yeah, you just don't want to have any like big chunks, but if the chunks you have are still not to your liking, go ahead and keep blending. Isabella asked, are we done? Yeah, so trying to figure out right now where everybody's at. If your carrots are out of the oven, the carrots are done. If your pesto is blended and tasty, your pesto is done. So if that's the case, Jazz, what are our final steps?
So I have my pesto. It is to taste how I like it to taste. I'm going to add some to my carrots that are already ready, and I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to mix it up so that it can be nice and incorporated. And I still have plenty of pesto left. And I'm trying to think of things to do with my leftover pesto. Do you guys have any ideas or suggestions? You could either unmute yourself or go in the chat and tell me what you plan to do with your leftover pesto, because I'm drawing a little bit of a blank. You could help me, that'd be great.
Have pesto pasta.
Pesto pasta.
Great idea, Suwani.
That is an excellent suggestion. So I have my pesto carrots are ready to go. You could, if you want to make it a little fancy, you could, here you can see, here you can see, no, here you can see. You could take some cashews, crush it up on top, make it cute, add that little bit of crunch. Want to make it real fancy.
And Sherry also shared in the chat pizza for pesto. Yum.
Pizza. That's a good one. And if you don't want to make the dough yourself, you can always go to your pizzeria and ask them for some dough. I've done that so many times.
So does anybody have any final products
Put some
they want to
Italian
show
bread,
us?
put some pesto. Yes, please.
Be careful if you're
So
holding
a
up your hot
sandwich.
carrots.
Yeah, this is
But-
not the tray that I put in the oven. This is a new tray that I put it on to mix it and everything.
Good. I see Veronica's carrots. Got some thumbs up going on. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So Maria says, yeah, cut up Italian bread. Oh, yum. Sorry, Suwani, do you have a question? All right, does anybody have any questions left about how to know if their pesto is done, how to know if their carrots are done, what to do with their leftover pesto? Any questions?
Mom,
Jacob has a question.
Yeah, Jacob.
we're gonna put our pesto on the pasta instead of carrots.
Delicious.
Yum. That sounds great. Thank you for
Can
sharing
you send
that.
us a photo? We'd love to see that.
Yes, please. And Michael, what about you?
The same thing.
You're gonna do it on pasta too?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then if you have leftovers, you can make sandwiches with maybe like some tomato mozzarella action, or you can put it on other veggies. You can put it on bread, like Maria's awesome suggestion. I'm so excited to eat this. Make sure your ovens are off once you're out of the oven.
It seems like everybody is all done though and done with questions. So if that's the case, we will say goodbye very soon so you can continue to eat your carrots. Don't forget to send us pictures or tag us. And I'll send you all an email by Monday with the recording and the recipe again and all this information. So if you didn't get to copy it down from the chat, it's no worries. So everyone go and enjoy your carrots and pesto. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for welcoming us into your kitchen.
Thank you.
And enjoy your lunch. Bye, guys.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Have a good
everybody.
Saturday.